So, okay, hello everyone. For today's session, I have a guest. She's a teacher. She's a Filipino teacher. Filipino teacher. So she was my former English teacher for several, I think, almost 2 years. I had sessions with her twice a week or three times a week. Her name is Trina. Okay, she's very friendly. She's very talkative. She's very she's always informed about what is going on in the world, what is the trend in the world. So that's why I
I
like
try.
I yes, I noticed it. Okay, so welcome, Trina. So how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me here, Carlos. It's nice to see you again after such a long time.
Yes, it has been a long time since I we had the sessions, no? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you
Yeah,
remember? I think I started having sessions with you 2000, more or less 2017.
I
And
think so. You were one of my regular students on another platform. Mm.
yes, so you teach, you are still teaching in Lingual Books. That's the company's name, the name of the company, no?
Yeah, yes. Well, no, I'm not teaching on Lingualbox anymore. I think they
Oh.
decided to shut. Well, the website is still available, but they're not offering
Mhm.
their services anymore.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that because every time I opened the webpage, it was like you said, it was online, active. And I thought, oh, because I could see other teachers there, that their calendars opened, you know?
Really? The last time I checked, no teachers had their calendars open.
Oh.
But
I
I could still
probably,
log in as a teacher, and I haven't really tried opening any slots there because I've
okay.
officially submitted my resignation years ago.
Okay.
hmm hmm
Okay. Well, so right now you are teaching on Italki, I think, no?
Yes. I'm currently teaching on italki full time, and then
Okay.
I also have my own personal projects where I have to teach Filipinos face to face.
Oh, okay. So, and you teach English because it's like it's almost like your native language, I think, no? It's like you grew up having English spoken every day in your circle, in your professional, no?
Yes,
Settings,
definitely.
no?
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know anything about the Philippines is uh, largely a bilingual country, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't just speak two languages. At the very least, a Filipino can speak
Mm-hmm.
at least two languages, but most can
Mm-hmm.
speak really a lot more than two, maybe three, four, or five, depending on where they're
Oh,
from. So in my
wow.
case, I'm one of those Filipinos who can solidly speak two languages. So that's Tagalog and English. Tagalog is the
Mm-hmm.
language of the capital from Manila to, the nearby regions, and
Mm-hmm.
English, of course, which is the
Wow.
language of education and business here in the Philippines.
Yes. I have heard that learning English in Philippines is extremely important because it opens you new doors or doors for you to succeed in the future for
Oh,
the
definitely.
academic or
Mm.
professional areas, no?
Yes, exactly. I think it's not just true in the Philippines, but all over the world. Mm.
Yes. And there are countries where English is spoken almost like a native language. For example, Netherlands is one of them. I have
Definitely.
I have
Dutch people
had
are really good in
teachers.
speaking in English. Mm.
Yep. I have had students that are learning Spanish. Not too many because it's not very common. Usually, the European students are trying to learn like Spanish from Spain, you know. And
Mhm.
here, because it's another continent, the ones that are trying to learn Spanish are from the US or from Canada because it's nearby Mexico. Okay.
Mhm.
So regarding English, okay, I prepare some questions about no to have like a kind of structured session. Okay,
Sure,
so
no worries.
so the first question was when did you start learning English and what motivated you to do so? So when you were a child, you were learning both languages like Tagalog and
hmm
English. But
hmm
I know that in the Philippines, most of the TV shows that are broadcasted are
Yeah.
in English, no?
In my generation, maybe to
Mm-hmm.
give you a little bit of context, English is one of the official languages of the country. And in my generation, we learned the maths, the sciences, the history classes. They were all in English, except of course for Filipino. So in my generation, we were taught English at a very early age. And then almost all of our reading materials, even commercials, were in English too. Of course, we had some Tagalog materials at school and even on TV, but I grew up watching English movies. They largely didn't really dub these movies before, unlike now. It's a little bit different nowadays. And I grew up singing English songs more than Tagalog, stuff like that.
Ah, okay. And what about Tagalog? It's like, do you when you were a child, you practice or you spoke Tagalog as English, both at the same time?
Yeah, definitely. So at least in
Okay.
my household, I grew up in a household filled with teachers. So my grandmother was a teacher, my mom, my aunt. I was surrounded by different types of teachers. So
Okay.
largely when we communicate to each other, we depending on the topic, we would use Tagalog or English. So I suppose, as I recall, when we speak about politics, we prefer to use English. And then when we speak about, let's say, maybe lighter topics, we prefer to use Tagalog.
Oh, nice. And Tagalog is similar to Spanish in some way, some words, or no?
Okay, since the Philippines was under Spanish rule for 300 years, we were able to borrow and adopt some Spanish words. So most of the Spanish words that we still use now are all related to religion and schooling. So, for example, of course, you have religión, Dios, Cordero, mostly related to religion, and then of course school stuff like cuaderno, mesa, cilia,
Okay.
lápiz. There.
Is it how do you say in Tagalog? How are you? Is como estás? Something like that or
Oh
no?
yeah. So the way we greet each other, we say kamusta, or
Ah,
maybe short
okay.
version musta.
Okay.
There.
Yep.
But some Spanish words have evolved in terms of a definition. Like for example, the word leche. Leche does still mean milk
Yep.
in when we name desserts like leche flan there.
Yep.
But we also use it as a bad word.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when we don't want to say F, which
Uh-huh.
is for
Yeah.
some people
I
F is
know.
such a bad
Yeah.
word and they want something a little bit less in less intensive, less
Okay.
intensive or
Okay.
less foul than that. So we use
Okay.
leche.
Ah, really?
We
It's
say
like
leche.
in the middle, the middle term, not to be very
Yeah,
harsh,
yeah.
but not to be very soft.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Not to be too crass, but we
Okay.
also,
Okay.
yeah, we not to be too crass. Like, I think the F
Uh-huh.
word seems to
Uh-huh.
be a bit too crass for some, so they
Okay.
use
Okay.
something around the middle.
Okay.
Leche.
So now I'm going to be afraid to say leche. No?
It's all right. It's fine.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Mm.
Okay. Muy bien. Very good. Very interesting answer, Trina. Okay. Thank you. So the second one is very interesting because as a learner, English learner, I have had many, or not many, but some specific troubles in certain areas at English. For example,
Mm-hmm.
phrasal verbs.
Mm-hmm.
Phrasal
Mm-hmm.
verbs, it has been very difficult for me because one phrasal verb could mean different things.
True.
So in
Depending
your
on the
case,
context too.
exactly, depending on the context. So take off could mean like, regarding airplanes. It could also be regarding clothes. It could be even regarding taking off something from a place, I think, more or less.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So in your experience, in your case, I
Mm-hmm.
know that your English level now it's awesome, incredible, native. But when you were a kid, what was the most difficult thing for you to learn when or when you were a teenager, when you were learning English? What is the specific thing that is the most difficult to learn? No, in this
Okay, so
language.
let me just think about it for a moment. Um, okay, so At school, largely we used English to learn the maths and the sciences, just like what I've said. So I suppose the
Yes.
most difficult part was to understand science concepts and
Okay.
understanding math word problems.
Oh, okay. Like
Yeah, I
addition,
do.
subtraction.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I do remember asking my parents to translate a few words for me in Tagalog because they were largely not
Mm,
used in day-to-day
okay.
life.
Okay.
And
Okay.
well, the downside of that kind of method of learning, the subjects in a foreign language, that time, I would say
Mm-hmm.
English was somewhat more foreign than Tagalog.
Okay.
Um, it was so difficult to have a deeper understanding of the sciences and the maths.
Okay.
It took some time
Mm-hmm.
before I got used to it, but
Okay.
since it was mandatory to use English as the medium
Mm,
of instruction in schools in my generation, yeah,
okay.
I was able to survive that.
So,
Now, when it
so,
comes
so
to phrasal verbs, it's also worth noting that most Filipinos are not really that well acquainted with phrasal verbs that they use in
mm,
parts of the world like the United States or the
oh,
UK.
okay. I didn't know that.
We
Uh-huh.
normally just don't use phrasal verbs that much here. So you
Mm-hmm.
could say that while maybe I can say that I'm a native English speaker, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you that I speak American English. That's totally different. So
Oh,
we have a different
okay.
variety of English here in the Philippines.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
And
It's
it's
like
something
a.
very
Mhm.
neutral, you could say. So that's why a
Oh,
lot of employers from all over the world really love hiring Filipinos because our English is very neutral, very
okay.
easy to understand, not just in terms of pronunciation, but our word choices as well. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
Yes.
use, most
Mm-hmm.
Filipinos don't really use phrasal verbs that much, at least here
Okay.
in the Philippines. Probably abroad they have to, depending on their location. We gotta adapt. But if we were to
Mm-hmm.
go to countries that don't normally speak in English in day-to-day life, we use very neutral words that are
Oh.
easy to understand overall.
Yes, I have realized that Filipino accent in English is very very clear. At least to me, when you speak in
Mhm.
English, I can understand you perfectly. Okay,
Uh,
because
that's
there
great.
are there are accents. And another thing regarding, well, my experience learning English is that I have
Mhm.
been, how do you call it, exposed to content from Hollywood, so
Mhm.
all the TV series that I have watched, most of them are from the US. So the
Mhm. Mhm.
accent from, I don't know, California or something, I don't know honestly, but the issue is that the accent that I have listened to on the TV, on the radio, from that exposure to content from the US, has in some way has made me also to capture that accent or to get that accent. That's why
Mhm.
I speak like that too. It's obvious that my Mexican accent will be forever there. No,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's part of our fingerprint.
It's
It's
part of
something.
our identity.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own unique accent, and I don't think we should all sound the same.
Yes, yes, exactly. There's one experience that my Canadian teacher told me. There was a French lady that was very
Mm.
fluent in French. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
so she had a very beautiful accent. She learned a lot of words. She had that kind of level, advanced level, even C2 probably. So
Wow.
the problem was that when she started to speak in French, the people around her believed that she was a native French speaker, you
Oh,
know,
okay. She was
and
that
then
good. Mhm.
yes, and then she had to tell them to tell them, yeah, no, I have that very well native accent, but it's not my native language. There are several things I don't know, and that's another thing about acquiring a native accent, that some people could believe that you are a native speaker when you aren't. No,
Mm, 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 mm. And
so
if we're going to talk about being a native, what does native mean anyway? Because if we're going
mhm.
to take a look at the definition on the internet, it's a little bit blurred
Okay.
there.
Mhm.
So when we say you're a native speaker, at the very least, you should have started speaking that language at a very young age.
Okay.
So
Uh
that's
huh.
actually somehow the minimum definition of a native speaker. Um,
Mhm.
so a person may have a very different kind of English and may not sound fluent, but can still be a native speaker of some kind.
Yes.
So that's one thing. And so I don't really want people to be misguided of what a native speaker sounds like. So I suppose it's best to ask, for example, if you really want to understand where the person is from, for example, and you want to really get to know what kind of English the person speaks, you have to ask the person, where did you grow up? So I grew up in the United States speaking in American English. So that's a more accurate way of getting to know a person's language competency. And if people ask me, are you a native speaker? I always tell them that I grew up speaking in English in the Philippines, to be specific, because I don't want people to be misled of what being a native means. It's not exactly a technical term. Yeah.
Well, regarding that topic, there is how do you call that? There is an area regarding language acquisition. Okay. And I know that you already know so much about this, but yeah, okay. In the theory of learning, language acquisition refers mainly. I'm not totally sure, but I think it's mainly regarding kids, how they acquired their language based on since they were kids, since they were children. Why? Because it's very different how we learn a language depending on what you said. For example, being in the foreign country. So if you were born, or no, that you weren't born in the native country doesn't mean that you will not be able to acquire a native level. Because what if that person that probably weren't born, but he or she started to live since he was or she was very, 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 very young. So up to a point, she or he will reach a native level. But as you said, native could be very vague, no? But regarding children specifically, that's my concern. Regarding children, we know that children acquire the language or learn the language so differently from adults. It's like what they hear, and they also, I don't know if you believe in this idea of plasticity of the brain, that it is said that children has that kind of plasticity or flexibility to learn many things or to process things faster. I don't know. So, and another thing is regarding how they learn, because they are not taught directly like in a classroom. Like no. Generally or usually the corrections. I mean, when they are not babies, but how they call after being babies. There is a word, but that age range. When, for example,
early
they say
childhood.
Early childhood, when they say a word in English that is wrong, and then the one correcting her is the parents. Are the parents? No, you don't say that. You say that or that. And that way is how they are corrected, because and that's why also a process of when they acquire. Obviously, also the passive or passive. How do you say passive, passive way of
Passive.
passive? Okay, they are passive listeners all the time. So they hear their parents, they hear their surroundings, they hear the news, they hear the cartoons, everything in English. And slowly, obviously, with the pass of the years, is when they slowly start to produce sentences with the corrections. So what do you know about this theory of learning a language, about acquisition?
Okay, so language acquisition is not limited to children. So language acquisition, if I recall correctly, it's simply our humans' ability to acquire language. The word is acquire, so meaning to understand or comprehend a language and be able to produce the language. So it's not limited to children. It's also applicable to adults. That's why you and I are learning different languages now, right? Okay. So I suppose for children, from my experience and from what the research is saying, children's brains are developing largely. So they can really take in a lot of information.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that they're passive. I'd say
Mhm.
that, yeah, of course, there's some passive learning here and there, but I wouldn't largely say that they're learning languages in a passive manner. It's just
Mhm.
that their brains are hardwired to acquire or
Mhm.
learn about the environment
Okay.
there, and
Okay.
their brains are growing at the
Mhm.
same time. Mm.
Yes. Mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean that children are better at learning a language than adults. This is backed
Mhm.
up by research.
Yes.
If I'm
Mhm.
definitely children are better at um, acquiring pronunciation at a native,
Mhm.
you could say, level.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if you expose children to, let's say, American English all
Mhm.
throughout their early lives up until
Mhm.
maybe their teens, they're
Mhm.
most likely to adopt a very American native like pronunciation
Okay.
there. But
Mhm.
for adults, it's actually quite more difficult
Yes. Mhm.
there.
Yes.
Maybe
Definitely. I believe so.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
but it doesn't make adults less better at learning a language. It's just that in
Okay.
terms of acquiring
Mhm.
certain accent or pronunciation can be quite
Mhm.
difficult for adults. But for the
Okay.
rest, we have other
Mhm.
ways of learning a language because we're more
Yes.
aware of how we learn
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
But for
Yes.
children, they have other
Mhm.
advantages, children don't have
Mhm.
to worry about other responsibilities. They don't have to worry about putting food on the table most of the time. They
Yeah.
don't have to worry about work. They don't have
Yeah.
heartbreaks to worry about.
Uh-huh.
So unlike adults,
Yeah.
um, they largely have other responsibilities
Yeah.
to think about and not
They are
just
swamped,
learning a
no?
language.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, children are what? Normally they're just busy playing, having fun,
Yeah.
and along the way they actually learn a
Mm-hmm.
language.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question that I'm trying to answer here is it, um, are children better at learning a language than
Mm-hmm.
adults? In terms of acquiring accent and pronunciation, yes, they're a lot better.
Yes.
But for the
Mm-hmm.
rest, it all boils down to how dedicated a person is, especially
Yes.
adults, in making
Mm-hmm.
time to
Mm-hmm.
learn what they need to learn to
Mm-hmm.
really improve their language skills. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
Yeah,
another thing about this is how do you teach children? Because we know that children, at least in my experience, in my case, what I try to do with children is to teach them by having fun, and
of course. Mm,
indirectly is how they are going to learn, because it's what we call a memorable teaching.
mm.
Like, you can teach a language like showing the grammar, and then examples, and then grammar exercise, or what we call drills, no,
Mm,
in English. But
mm-hmm,
you could also, what you can do with children or even teenagers too, okay, teach
mm-hmm,
the grammar, and then they produce something, and then again, that's one way. No, it could be any way.
mm,
So
mm,
the
mm,
idea is that, okay, both ways in some way could function, no? But the
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
difference is that probably with the funny activity, with the music activity, they're going to recall more, because it's going to be in their minds attached, like, or it would be like a memorable, I don't know, activity. And then, I had fun with this activity, and I
mm,
remember that we were doing this and that, and having fun, and we laugh and we joke. And by doing that, it seems that the brain, the in the long-term memory, recalls more, I don't know if pieces of information, but at least it makes you to recall or to have a memorable um, remembering. How do you say that?
mm-hmm.
No.
Um, well, yes, I definitely agree that play is very important when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to learning anything,
Yes.
especially uh, especially when it comes to children, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't box the idea of play as a form of learning to limited to children. It can even work to adults. It's just that adults don't like the idea of being treated like a child. But if you introduce, let's say, a song filled with maybe interesting vocabulary that maybe an adult beginner doesn't know yet, they can really remember the words better if you sing it to them.
Yes.
Even
you're right.
Some adults don't want to admit it, but singing a song in English can really help them remember the words. They just don't want to be treated like children. So, but again, I think it's important for any learner to have fun and find purpose in whatever they're learning, especially language. For children, it's extremely important because why would you stress children a level of stress is very important. I don't think it's healthy and realistic to demand a learning environment to be stress-free. I don't believe in that. I believe that there should be a healthy amount of stress, and there is joy in experiencing pressure when it comes to learning anything, including learning a language. It's just that for children, we want to be creative with children because we also want to take advantage of their natural creativity.
Yes.
And also, singing a song, what else? Drawing, for example, can really help them remember words and
using
build their
bodies,
confidence too. And using their bodies.
It's what we call I forgot the term, the total physical response, method, I think, no?
Total physical response.
Okay, so let me let me ask you another question.
Sure.
So, how long, what levels or age groups do you enjoy teaching the most?
That's a difficult question. Okay, so I'm a preschool teacher by profession here in the Philippines. So my first 4 years of teaching was largely with 6-year-olds and below. And I have to say it was fun. It was fun teaching young kids. We sang, we played, we danced. We were very creative in the classroom. And what I liked about teaching young children the most was they're very sincere. There you go. And they're very honest. And of course, there were times when I got upset with some children, but largely it's because, it's just being human. Sometimes children just get into your nerves, that's all. But unlike with adults, adults sometimes have a hidden agenda. So you can't really fully trust an adult there. Yeah. But I don't hate teaching adults. There are some interesting aspects of teaching adults. First of all, of course, I get to talk to them about anything under the sun, mature topics, difficult topics, philosophical ones, current events, which makes the conversation very interesting.
Yes.
Right now, I'm only exclusively teaching adults, and sometimes I accept teenagers, close to 18-year-olds. I usually accept 16-year-old children, but nothing younger than 16. Because on italki, I teach full time, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and having children may take a lot of my energy, which I don't have.
I truly believe that. So children drain. And I'm not saying it in a bad way.
Not in a bad way.
But it's obviously,
they require a lot of energy from you, And teaching online isn't exactly the ideal way to teach young children.
No. I was
definitely not.
When I started teaching online, my first experience was with children. And I think that was the worst idea to start with, because as you said, children first, their span, they usually have a short span attention. So if you don't catch their attention in some seconds, you lose them. They are not paying attention to you. that's why you have to use, like you said, all the what we talked about a moment ago, songs, games, and that. No, but like you said, like they are very easily distracted, so you have to maintain them focus, and sometimes you have to use, even what I use is like, change the tone as a song, or like a rhythmic. Hey, where are you? And then the child, like,
You're
hey,
basically
no.
playing, yeah, that's true. Making it interesting with
and
songs, dance, and plenty of
and
activities.
and at the end of the session, I was honestly tired,
Yeah,
because I was my
can
first.
totally relate.
And so that's why I decided, as you, but in my case, I decided to do it, also because I had bad experiences with some children and some teenagers. Okay, I noticed that some of them, very few, were a little rude to me. Like, I remember a little kid and his sister. They were whispering, and I could hear mean things about me, like, and as you said, they are children, they are teenagers, so we can understand that it's part of being a teacher to deal with this kind of situation, because they are not mature, they are, they are like, uh, uh, you know developing, blah blah blah. No, on the other hand, I hate to be disrespected. I don't. So what I did is I talked with the parents, okay, and the parents. So many parents didn't care too much about the session. I mean, with those uh, mean students, what they
I get what you
wanted.
mean.
What they wanted is to maintain them occupied or busy. No,
Basically, ask you to babysit them.
exactly, because they were very, and I was like, no, 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 I cannot do that. No, so that's why, because of those experiences, very few, but they they made me realize that I was not the best teacher to teach children, the fit one to. So right now I'm only teaching two teenagers. Well, one teenager, because the other, no, one teenager, a teenager from, they are from the US, but their parents, or her parents are from China. And that's it. So so I think we decided to do the same, different circumstances, no, different reason, motives, but yes, no. Okay, okay,
Right, right.
okay. So let's
I,
go, let's cut. Sorry.
yeah, I have to say, in my experience, maybe
Uh-huh.
some of the teenagers that I've taught did test my patience. Well,
Oh.
I'm not really sure if they said anything
Mhm.
inappropriate during the session when they speak in their native language, but
Okay,
of course,
okay.
you get the feeling that they don't respect you at some point, right?
Yes, yes, that's
Um,
awful, awful. Uh-huh.
in my case, when that happened, it was with a 16 or 17-year-old
Okay,
Vietnamese student,
okay,
and we just, I don't know, I just simply decided not to follow the curriculum and then asked him what's wrong. So
okay,
I suppose he was already at a point where he can actually express himself quite well. And then I
okay,
just, the sessions became more of like a therapy than
okay.
an English lesson.
Okay,
Is
okay,
because he was quite rebellious,
okay,
definitely in class,
okay.
and he
Yep.
started out acting stupid in class,
Okay.
not knowing what to say. But I knew that he was actually pretty good because I saw
Oh,
his
okay.
English test results, and
Okay.
he was already on his way to a C1.
Oh, wow.
But he
He had a
was
good one. Uh-huh.
underperforming in class and acting like an idiot,
Oh, okay, okay. So
for the lack of a better word. Yeah. He was
so
clearly just testing my patience, and he wanted some time to relax and not and avoid being pressured to speak and perform. Mm.
yes, well, another thing that I have experienced is, for example, what I'm trying to do is, if I have that kind of those kind of students, I don't take it personal. Why?
Mm.
Because it seems like I've decided to, in some way, to be sympathetic with the situation
Empathetic.
of empathetic with the situation of the students. Why? does he behave like that? Probably he had a bad day, he had issues in his school or with family problems, or I don't know, boyfriends, girlfriends, breakups, or sometimes the behavior of some students are also done
Mm.
because many things are going on in their lives, you know.
Yeah.
So in my case, that's why if a student behaves like that, like being rude, being mean, I try not to scold him or to answer aggressively. What I try is to stop the bad behavior, like being obviously polite and educated. But at the same time, I'm not trying to be mean and to, because I have noticed that some teachers are like that, like, and I
They take
respect. I
things
mean,
personally.
yes, yes, and that's I think the
Mm,
worst
mm,
thing that could happen also.
mm,
So
mm.
with teenagers and children,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah,
supposed to be
true.
the professionals, not like we're supposed.
Oh, yeah, we've got cut off. So just to keep my answer simple, which age group do I really prefer teaching? I don't have any strong preference. I like teaching both children and adults. It's just that at the moment I don't have enough energy to handle a lot of kids online. So I'm
Mhm,
focusing mainly on adult learners. Mm.
mhm. Yep, and I do the same. High five, Trina. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. But as you said, I like to teach children, but right now I'm focusing more on adults because I have many sessions every day, and if my energy is drained, then I don't have
Mm.
energy for the rest of my students. No.
Exactly.
Yes, that's
Very true.
a problem. That's the issue. So
Mm.
probably I have not. I know that there are some teachers that teach children the full day, and they love it because probably they trained. They are professional teachers that train to do that, and they are accustomed to you train to
It's probably
no.
because of their personality too. So,
Oh, okay.
I think there are people who are naturally very high in energy. So
Mm-hmm.
we want those types of teachers to handle children. Mm.
Yep. Yes, you're right. And yes, well, yes, it depends. No, it depends. Okay, Trina. So thank you very much. So it is everything for this video, and I really appreciate that you took the call, and because I know that you're busy, you have many sessions, you are teaching online. And thank you very much for being here and sharing your opinions and your ideas and everything that you already know. Very
Mm.
insightful. Okay, and I wish you the best. And until we see again, have a nice nice. What can I say? Nice
Day.
life. A nice day.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for having me. And it was really nice catching up with you. And I hope that we can work on a project together. Maybe we can have a podcast episode. That would be
That
great,
would be
right?
great. That would be great.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, have
Perfect.
a great night and I'll see you again soon. Bye,
Thank you.
Carlos.
Bye bye,
Bye,
Trina.
everybody.
Bye. Bye bye, everyone.